Welcome into the Inside Carolina podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. It is On the Beat Live, and it is Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. With Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, Ross Martin, Adam Smith. I'm Tommy Ashley again, and Johnny T-Shirt's our folks. Ross and Adam, of course, Inside Carolina's beat writers, the best in the business. And just so people will know, this is the first time I'm doing the live broadcast. Producer John is not here, so if I screw it up, it's on me. I'll take ownership. But Ross, let's get into it right now. Carolina's 3-0. For some reason, it doesn't feel it around maybe around the program, around the fan base, or whatever. But the bottom line is they're 3-0, right where they were wanted to be going into this season at this point.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, everything's great. And this is exactly where we want to be heading into the bye week. 3-0 with some road tests, 2-0 on the road. Everybody should have plenty of experience now in terms of starters. Drake May now is 3 games in. You have plenty of tape of not only yourself to self-scout during the bye week, but the opponent. You have plenty of tape on Notre Dame and other teams to get ready. So, I mean, I think without looking at the games, this is where you want to be, and Mac Brown and the staff should be happy. But obviously, inside the program and with the fan base, there's going to be concerns with certain aspects. But look, the defense was a little bit better against Georgia State, and the offense. There's definitely some improvements the offense needs coming out of Atlanta. But hey, halfway to a bowl. How about that? That's pretty nice. Hey, and I want to get ahead of this before we not ahead of it, but we're going to add the Jeff Schottmer calling the shots audio to the end of this podcast. So I want to make sure I say that now so people who listen to this at the top. So if you've been missing calling the shots, we're adding the audio from here on out to the end of the On the Beat podcast. I'll say that again at the end, but that's a lot of people wanted that. So if you want to hear Jeff Schottmer, former UNC player, former UNC staff member with myself, we record every Monday. That'll be on the end of this podcast audio. Tommy?
Yep, and that's a YouTube only podcast now, but folks wanted, Inside Carolina fans wanted it, and so we're going to add it on. The reason it's not a podcast standalone is because the weird algorithm that the podcast apps have, and so, like Ross said, get your Jeff Schottmer, Ross Martin fix at the end of this podcast. Don't scroll ahead. Listen to this one, and then check out Calling the Shots. It is a great show. And Ross, I really do enjoy hearing Shots' take on it. It is cool hearing his take, having not only been a part of the program, but been a part of a Chiswick defense and been a part of what it all entails there. Adam, the man has adapted quite well. He's wearing the no off-season shirt. Show everybody that. That's some of the Inside Carolina love that the
look at that chest
that folks get. And I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at the
still got it, baby.
On the back it says Inside Carolina 20, I believe, for the 20-year anniversary. Adam, your take as well. Carolina's 3-0. I know you've been, we'll say, more positive than most of us have been on these shows. And look, to be honest, you're right. They're 3-0. I mean, how much better could they be than 3-0?
Can't be any better than 3-0, baby. And it was funny when Ross started talking. I was like, well, if that question got asked to me, I would have started it a different way because I asked Mac Saturday in dreary Atlanta as he was standing there outside the locker room. Mac, do you feel like you're 3-0? And he said, yes, like very quickly. Yes. And then I waited for him to expand on that. And he said, well, because we are 3-0. So, I mean, there you go. Yeah. Like, it might not be the most convincing 3-0 that there has ever been in the history of college football, but like, I mean, look at what has happened. Look at what's going on across college football. I mean, what in the world? Like, obviously we know what App State did at Texas A&M. The week before, might have been lost. Georgia Southern led South Carolina in Columbia in the third quarter till they got a couple punts blocked. So yeah, Carolina's 3-0. I mean, as we have talked about for a long time, that the schedule allowed for the Tar Heels to settle in and get some games under their belt and get some things under their belt. And, oh, by the way, they lost British Brooks in the preseason and Antoine Green in the preseason. And Josh Downs has played one game, and Drake May had never started a game. And they got a million freshmen and sophomore running around out there. Now, the defense has been a bit of an issue, but when they needed some stops in Atlanta, they got some stops in Atlanta. So, they're 3-0.
I'll hop in here.
Game. That's who they play next.
Ross has a hourglass, and when the sand runs out, he's going to interrupt you.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. I didn't know that. You should have told me.
Nah, I mean, you just kept saying 3-0. Someone was going to hop in and kind of take the reins.
I had a good point, but that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Notre Dame hasn't won a game, and they're coming to Chapel Hill. They play California on Saturday. They could be 0-3 coming to 3-0 Chapel Hill, 3-0 UNC. Please go. Sorry.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I mean, Georgia State was down to South Carolina, and App State went over and played a really tough game and beat Texas A&M. And I think it was Tony Grimes' dad who responded to one of my tweets during the game that transfers has changed the game with these non-Power 5 teams, a group of 5 teams. They're a lot more talented than people think. You see Georgia State, you see Appalachian State, and you think they're, what does Roy Williams say? Daughters of the poor, sisters of the poor. They got some talent, and they have these transfers now that can make them a little bit better than they used to be. And so I think people need to remember that. And App State's a great program. Now, look, I think the complaint with fans on the message boards on Twitter is with the defense, and there's obviously some complaints to be seen because I think we thought they're going to be a lot better than expected. But look at both games; they made plays to win. I don't want to be super, super negative. It seems like we've had some other podcasts that have taken that path. 3-0, and now it's time. Now it's the true test. I think after Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, we'll kind of know what this team is. I think there's still some questions of how good they can be, but you've got to be happy with how Drake May looks, even though I think he wasn't as sharp against Georgia State.
How would we feel about Carolina if they lost to Marshall? Notre Dame just lost to Marshall. Marshall's in the Sun Belt. It's just, I think that again, it could be more convincing, but I don't think you can apologize for winning some games. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you about
conference in college football.
Let me ask you this, and Ross, you first. Did what happened last weekend with App and in College Station, with Marshall at Notre Dame, and to your point about the portal, LeBourne, their running back, was a Florida State 5-star before he washed out. But how much of that has sort of mitigated maybe some of the angst that Carolina has, given that App dominated Texas A&M. I don't know if y'all watched it. I watched it start to finish. I mean, they absolutely wore Texas A&M's rear ends out on their home field. And then Marshall did what they did. How much of that has sort of maybe balanced a little bit of the negativity, Ross, if it has?
Yeah, I mean, I think App State going into College Station winning makes UNC's win over them and scoring 63 points on them look a lot better, because what was it, 17-14? Was that the score? So Texas A&M with all their 5-stars and 4-stars only scored 14 points on Appalachian State. UNC scored 63 at home in Boone, and so that kind of makes you look at UNC a little bit differently, I think. So I mean, I think it's a good point for UNC to have a bye week. I think they can rest. They can look at the schedule. They can self-scout a lot. And it's kind of that the 1/4 of the season is now over. They have the warm-up. They have everything's done. And now it's a huge game in Notre Dame, and the ACC slate starts right after that. So it's go time here. It's a good break for us. And I think Adam and I both kind of needed a week to reset. Nice timing for the UNC basketball schedule to come out, and for Hubert Davis to do some interviews that we're putting up on the site. So it's a much-needed break for everybody involved. And it sets up well. And look, 3-0, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Notre Dame with Cal this weekend, then they come to Chapel Hill. How crazy would that be if it was 3-0, like 3-0 and 0-3? A huge football game. And Notre Dame did not look good. So
and they lost the starting quarterback too, the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, and
he's over for Marcus Freeman.
He didn't seem that good though. The quarterback they lost. All due respect.
That's a good point, Ross. Very good point.
Yeah, I don't. Marcus Freeman, first Notre Dame coach ever to start 0-3. That crowd's interesting up there. We'll say it that way. Let's look at this let's talk about it a little bit from the offensive standpoint. Then we'll go to the defense, and then after the break, we're going to talk about that basketball schedule y'all mentioned. But other than maybe shoring up some offensive line issues, and I know there's a debate on how bad or good they've been or whatever, but Ross, no, I'll start with you, Adam, first. I'll flip the script. What can Carolina do better on offense? I mean, hell, they're scoring 51.5 points a game, and folks are going to say it's not G5 stuff, but Georgia State's defense was legit. They had some dogs on there, and then App only gave up 7 offensive points to Texas A&M. So, I mean, they're obviously doing something right. How could they be better, Adam?
Vip's cracking me up on the comments over there. Keep it up.
Vip's like killing me. It's like, geez, that guy's never been on a beat. He doesn't know how much work a beat is. In the grind, dude.
Shots fired, man.
I mean, to get to your question, I mean, from a standpoint of production and points, the UNC offense has been great. Like, yes, there were. I felt like, the offensive line the offensive line at Georgia State was a little bit of a mess on the right side without Spencer Rowland starting at right tackle, the Harvard transfer. They had to move some pieces around. William Barnes slid out to right tackle, Jonathan Adorno at right guard. There were some moments there. You remember the 4th and 2 call there on Carolina's 39-yard line where the guy number 1 for Georgia State just came untouched and dropped Drake May. So, I mean, I think the UNC offense has been excellent, given all the things that have happened with injuries and all the new pieces and all the inexperience. But I do think that there's also a lot of room to grow. I don't know how much better you can ask Drake May to be and how much tougher, too. That guy doesn't mind taking a hit. But what is it? It's 11 touchdown passes already through 3 games for Drake May and only 1 interception. And, the running backs, Omarion Hampton, 200-yard games in the first 200-yard games in the first 3 games. It's going to be interesting to see what the wide receivers look like when Josh Downs and Antoine Green come back, because Mack Brown has said that Antoine Green is running around and catching passes. I'm not sure where Josh Downs is, but you would think those guys would be back sooner rather than later.
Ross, your take there. And by the way, Vip's in on you maybe for your weekend performance, but go ahead. How can Carolina's offense be better?
What was my weekend performance?
Was it in Georgia State?
I mean, I didn't go.
He's just messing with you.
Yeah.
How can Carolina's offense be better?
I mean, I think there's some concerns on the offensive line with run blocking. I think pass protection has been okay, but yeah, like Adam said, like you had players running loose there. I mean, I think there's a little bit of lack of talent in recruiting that's kind of showing up here. You bring in 2 transfers, Spencer Rowland, who's out with injury, and you bring in Corey Gaynor, who's been pretty good at center. And so obviously when you're bringing in transfers to start, that kind of shows that you're missing some holes from recruiting. I think some players haven't panned out. UNC hasn't really landed any top real elite offensive linemen until Zach Rice. I don't know if anybody who is William Barnes was a pretty good recruit, but he is just now starting. So I think some of that talent offensive line showing up. They do look a little better technique wise and blasting off the line thanks to Coach Bicknell. And so you would think that would get better. And at some point, I wonder if they do play Zach Rice some on that right side. I don't know when that's going to happen, but Jeff Schottmer said this on our show, like if he was good enough to play, he'd be playing. I know some people complain about not playing the freshman, but if he was good enough to play, he'd be playing. So you'd like to see that group get a little bit better. But yeah, you can't complain about a couple 100-yard games from the running backs and Drake May. I mean, there's little to pick apart. Drake May knows a couple passes were off. You got to like what Kobe Paysour has been doing too. And you got to like the weapons at running back. George Petaway, has scored the first 2 games, didn't have a big game against Georgia State, but then Omarion Hampton stepped up. DJ Jones looks pretty good. So there's 3 or 4 running backs there who've been solid. And I think there's no complaints from wide receivers. And the tight ends, I think, is the kind of the storyline. Adam may be having a story about the tight ends that I'm excited to read at some point this week. All 3 of them have been solid. They have the home run threat, which is cool to see. Kamari Morales, 55-yard touchdown run. We know what Bryson Nesbitt can be in the red zone. And then John Copenhaver, Copenhagen has been
Got it.
a good surprise for the Tar Heels. So that's exciting to see. That will help tight end recruiting, I think, too. Seeing those guys score, seeing those guys get 3-4 targets a game, you can sell it to recruits and you can get better tight ends in the recruiting cycles.
Drake May sees those guys. Yeah, like the way I have watched, I've been to all the games. Obviously, I feel like he sees those guys. He's 6'5", and he sees those guys. Morales has caught a touchdown pass in every game this season.
Is that true?
What's that?
That's true. Dang, I didn't know that. That's
awesome.
All he does is catch touchdown passes.
I know.
Tommy is a big Kamari Morales fan.
Hey, dude's when you see some big guy running in the end zone, it's probably him.
If you say the words tight ends to Drake May, the first name he says is Bryson Nesbitt. Drake May loves Bryson Nesbitt. Both Charlotte area guys. If you say tight end to Drake May, you're hearing Bryson Nesbitt. So that's something that I kind of want to dig into a little bit more. Is that these guys are involved more in the passing game, and Drake's going to them. But anyway, go ahead.
And that's a good point. I think it kind of evolves. They're not looking deep. Drake's not looking deep as much as Sam did. And he's not Sam. So you can expect him to play differently. He's looking to tight ends more. Tight ends have been better, more stuff across the middle, taking what the defense gives you. But it will be interesting to see if he does go deep with Antoine Greenback or Josh Downs back when you have those players in there. But the weapons are there, and Drake's distributing it like you would, kind of like a point guard, man. He gets the ball where it needs to go.
I think that's a fascinating thing that I don't know how it's going to play out when Josh Downs comes back and Antoine Green comes back. Who else is running around out there? Because Kobe Paysor, I want to say Paysauer every time. Yeah. He's been great. And Drake, he's got a good connection with Drake. JJ Jones was good in Boone. He didn't have a big day in Atlanta, but how do you mix and match the pieces? How do you work the rotation there at wideout? As Ross, as you've written, Phil Longo thinks he's got a lot of toys out there on offense. I guess it's a good problem to have, as the cliche goes. So we'll have to see there.
The story was 1,800 words when I sent it to Ben. Go ahead, Tommy. Sorry.
Drake May, to y'all's point about the deep ball, is Drake May's long is 55, and I believe that was Morales.
It was a catch and run.
And that was a catch and run. So
hey, man, he threaded that thing in there. That was like a skinny post or something. Oof, buddy. The angle we had at Georgia State, I'm assuming we were in the press box that you would have covered a game for the Atlanta Braves when Chipper Jones is at the plate.
Weren't y'all at the end? You were back there in the corner, weren't you?
Yeah, like back corner of one of the end zones, and the end zone Carolina was coming to in the first quarter. And it was a great angle because, he was fairly well covered. And, he zipped that thing in there. What would Ron Jaworski say? He threw him open, and Morales took off and scored a 55-yard touchdown. We had a good angle for that one. Sometimes we didn't have the best angle down in hot Atlanta.
Preston from Greensboro says it was a blessing in disguise for May to split time with Criswell, for the last couple of years so he could get chemistry with the second string guys that he's been playing at wide receiver. Ross, May grew up with most of those guys, right?
And May mentioned that about how he was passing with Paysauer and even Nesbitt in high school some. Because they had a lot of Blackwell, they all kind of came from the same 7-on-7 team, the Carolina Stars, as Don Callahan likes to note. So, and then they come to a lot of them are same year as Drake. So a lot of them are redshirt freshmen or sophomores. So they played together last year. And so that chemistry is showing. I think Paysor and Drake are roommates, and they pass during their offseason a lot. And so, I think it helps when, that's how it's supposed to work. Like, right. The second team backup guys are young. They play with the young guys. And then when the older guys graduate, they step in and become the stars. Same way for the basketball team.
Yeah. You're listening to the On the Beat podcast, Ross Martin, Adam Smith. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley, and producer Tommy Ashley today. Drop questions in the chat. We'll get to as many as possible. I think a lot of people say run blocking is an issue, and that was definitely an issue early in that game. But when Omarion Hampton got loose, if they can just get Hampton and Petaway and even DJ Jones, Adam, out of the backfield, those guys have the ability to make people miss, to break some tackles. Everybody wants to keep reverting back to Carter and Javante and all that. I mean, they led the NFL in broken tackles last year, so that was a different level. But I think Hampton, Petaway, and even Jones just need that first. They just need to get beyond the line of scrimmage, and then
How
they're
about this
good.
for Amorion Hampton? And we wrote about it in the Game Scoop. 4 carries in the first half, 3 yards. 3 yards in the first half. You're like, woo, 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 woo. And he had obviously fielded the kickoff where he probably should have let it drop, and he stepped out of bounds at the 2. How did he respond in the second half? 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. Breaking points become turning points. Check out the Game Scoop. That's 200-yard games. If you went back a couple of weeks ago to the preseason and you said Omarion Hampton's going to have 2 100-yard games through the first 3 weeks and 5 touchdowns in the first 3 games, you're taking that all day, right? Like, I mean, that's pretty dang good production. And he said, I asked him after the game. He said that when he went into the locker room at halftime at Georgia State, he had to collect his thoughts because they were all over the place, and he was not happy with how he had played in the first half, and he was not happy with himself for stepping out of bounds on the kickoff return and fielding that kick. And he said he had to settle down and just kind of, take a breath. And then look what happened. What a promising development that is there, where a guy's struggling and has made a mistake or two, and then look how he turned it around. I mean, the 58-yard touchdown run that he had after Georgia State took the lead, 28-21, might have been one of the most important plays of the game. It certainly was one of the most important plays of the game. So, yeah, I mean, the running game, Petaway wasn't didn't really show up in Atlanta too much, but DJ Jones had a nice game. He scored a touchdown. I think he ran for 61 yards, maybe something like that. He did have a fumble late, not great. But yeah, I mean, I'm done.
What else?
I'm worried about that timer that Ross has got.
What else on the offensive side of the ball? We can debate the offensive line. I think they'll get better. John Lilly obviously has been great with the tight ends, running backs, sort of thing. Somebody asked, have the coaches decided who has the better vision or whatever? I think they're going to use them. I mean, you mentioned Marion Hampton's run, Caleb Hood, that run against App where he broke a tackle to get a first down. I mean, that was 21-7 at the time, if my memory serves, or close to it. So that was another huge play by a running back. What else, Ross?
You're seeing the talent in recruiting at the skill positions coming through now, is what you're seeing. We knew the last 3 recruiting classes were very strong. And we haven't even seen Andre Green do anything yet of note. So you're seeing the Petaway, Amarion Hampton. Caleb Hood was a recruit I know a lot of people were excited about. Obviously, Drake May. So you're that wide receivers, Gavin Blackwell, Kobe Paysor, J.A. Jones is a pretty big recruit. You're seeing that talent come through. It's exactly what you want. You just gotta, I mean, there's not too much to pick apart about the offense. I think it's great, and I think fans should be pumped that Drake May is leading the charge. And look, when you have a good quarterback, you get good wide receivers, you get good running backs. And you should get, as the face of the program, you should start getting in offensive linemen who want to block for him. So that is a positive. I think, not to pump my show anymore, Jeff Schottmer said it's like the glory era of UNC quarterbacks, going from Marquise Williams to, I guess you got to skip the Nathan Elliott era, but to Sam Howell, to Mr. Trubisky, to Sam Howell, to Drake May. It's pretty cool.
You got to love Ross. You got to love Ross. He's like, these guys were all good recruits. So, I mean, what do you expect? You can be a good recruit, but you still got to go out there and deliver on the field, baby.
I mean, but you're seeing the recruit. This is why you recruit. It's the Jimmies and Joes, Adam.
I agree. But I love how you just you sort of minimize it. Like, yeah, they were good recruits. I mean, what do you expect? These 4 stars, 5 stars. That's what we got.
I would probably push back a little bit that it's totally the Jimmys and Joes. Because if that's the case, then App State had no shot at Texas A&M. And if that's the case, then the group we'll talk about after the break might have performed a little bit better But let's take a Johnny T-shirt read. I'll handle it, Ross. Johnny T-shirt and JohnnyT-shirt.com on East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. Go visit them when you're in Chapel Hill. Take care of them. They take care of you, the Inside Carolina subscriber. And if you're not a premium subscriber, not only do you get all this stuff, Don Callahan, Sherelle McMillan, basketball, Adam and Ross, everything you could imagine with Inside Carolina, you get 10% off your order. And when things cost as much as they cost, 10% is a deal. So take it, and it's free if you're an Inside Carolina premium subscriber. National Guys Pay the Bills. It's on the beat about 9:25 on the East Coast. We'll be right back. All right, boys.
I got to do a Blue Shark read too, Tommy.
All right, get it in. We're back with On the Beat Live. Ross Martin.
Welcome back to On the Beat. I want to talk about Blue Shark Vodka. They sponsor this show, and they sponsor Call 'em the Shots. Blue Shark Vodka, smoothest vodka in the world. As you get set for the Notre Dame tailgate, go to your local ABC store in North Carolina, all 100 counties. Blue Shark Vodka, smoothest vodka in the world. Get maybe a little apple cider vodka, cinnamon sticks. Sounds great as the leaves turn as we enter September and October. This summer I did a lot of, little basil, little cucumber with a little vodka there. Smoothest vodka in the world. We want to thank Connor Barth and the people at Blue Shark Vodka for sponsoring Inside Carolina. They're a local, independent company out of Wrightsville. They use sweet Carolina corn to make the smoothest vodka in the world. Thank you for supporting them, supporting us. And back to you, Tommy.
Yeah, and folks asking questions in the chat, keep in mind we were talking about offense. So we hadn't missed any questions yet. We got you covered. Travis Shaw's had 24 snaps as VIP. VIP is our official statistician in the chat. So he's handling that. And look, Adam, I wanted to show you one more thing. Check this out, buddy.
That's a great one. Yeah,
look at this.
Geo.
The Geo punt return. That's what you get if you've been a long time.
Kicked it to Geo.
Been a long time Inside Carolina person. Let's talk about the defense. I don't know where to start. We'll start with Travis Shaw. 24 snaps in 3 games, none of that.
He was out there. He was out there in Atlanta. They had him. I know he played 17 snaps. Right?
17. I thought he looked good in those 17. Or at least
there was a point where he was sort of running with the second string defensive line, sort of rotating in there with the twos. He was out there for, it was a meaningful game the whole way through. It wasn't like it was garbage time any time, but he was out there in the first half, and he was a factor. He was relevant.
Ross, he's a guy, like you mentioned, the recruiting. I mean, he's a freshman still, but he's gigantic. And he definitely made a difference against Georgia State. I mean, you saw Georgia State's defensive tackles. They were little fire plug type guys that were making damage. Travis Shaw's a mountain. How much does he sort of get better over this bye week, get a better understanding of what he's trying to do, and then sort of makes a big difference, especially if Miles Murphy is out for an extended period?
Right. They lost him Saturday. I don't know if you mentioned that. He was, it didn't look great.
What do you know what it was, Adam? Miles Murphy?
Definitely lower body.
Okay, Jeremy.
Tree trunk.
Well, it was. Jeremy's a loyal listener. I've been texting with him actually. It was lower body, but I don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah.
He blocked the field goal at the end of the first half, which was huge.
Is that why Travis Shaw got more time, you think?
Well, he was playing before Miles Murphy got hurt.
Okay, yeah.
Kevin Hester played a lot more once Miles got hurt.
Got it. So, yeah, I mean, Travis Shaw, 17 snaps is not insignificant. And this is a huge week for these freshmen because they get a lot of time because they'll rest Reva Hasek, obviously rest Miles Murphy. Kevin Hester won't get as many snaps, and you'll see more time for some of the freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores. So this is a big time for them, and this is when you expect some of the star freshmen to play more, the 4th, 5th, 6th week of the season when they get a feel for the game. Great to see him get 17 snaps, apparently graded out pretty well. I think for him, it's going to be a constant struggle to stay in shape, to lose some of that weight. He probably could lose another 15, 20, slim down, but he has all the traits. He's athletic for his size. He's massive. He's tall. He's low. He is a big dude. I mean, he has a massive butt. Is how I always, as a non-scout, I see a massive butt, and that's the power. That's the power at the nose tackle. So it's good, and you got to be excited for his future. I don't know if this is the year where he's gonna be like some impact player, But good to see him get snaps in the third game.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got to play, and he's got to play more. But you're right, he's got to get in shape and got to be able to do it more often. But I think 20, 25 snaps is maybe enough for him as a freshman. I think they're pushing. I think Noah Taylor had a lot against Georgia State, but everybody else is in the 40-ish range. So I think that's a
I think
that's a big deal.
12 to 15 to 20 is great. Speaking of Noah Taylor, man, I think he's been fantastic. I mean, what a good grab to get him and Corey Gaynor. You have two guys that are playing nearly the whole game from the transfer portal. And I saw Noah Taylor's bull rush for a sack. He's made the game-sealing play against App State, and so he's been awesome as a pass rushing threat that UNC needed. And to get a transfer player who's going to start, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, Mac always says he's not getting guys to sit on the bench, but Gaynor was huge because of the injury issues. I mean, at times last year they were playing with, somebody was playing center, but not really. And then to get Noah Taylor, I mean, both those guys have played just a ton of football, and we've seen that if you're a grown 22, 23-year-old person playing against an 18, 19-year-old, there's a difference unless the talent is just ridiculous. So go ahead, Adam.
I tell you what I was going to say was I think I agree with Ross on Noah Taylor. But I think who you also have to give a shout out to on the defense is Kamen Rucker. Yeah. That guy just keeps coming. You know what I mean?
He's a dude.
I know we talk about measurables and everybody wants to talk about, if you're a basketball player, is he going to play in the NBA? If you're a football player, he's going to play in the NFL. I know he doesn't have like the Des Evans, Spider-Man type reach where he looks like Jadeveon Clowney, but Kamen Rucker just plays his ass off. You know what I mean? Like he just keeps coming. And, he's been one of their best defensive players this season, I feel like, and he's not even technically a starter. I guess that doesn't really matter, but if you're starter or not, but he's been huge from a production standpoint and from, in my opinion, a leadership standpoint. You don't have him and Power Eccles and Cedric Gray keeping everybody from choking each other when they got mad at each other at Georgia State. They might have lost that game. It was going the wrong way. Georgia State had scored 25 straight points. I mean, Carolina's up 21-3, and then all of a sudden it's 28-21 Georgia State. You got App State deja vu all over the place. And Georgia State has a 98-yard touchdown drive. They score. They get the 2-point conversion. And here comes the Carolina defense off the field arguing with each other. You know what I mean? And if you don't have those guys, it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, I think a big thing to know about the defense is they were able to hold Georgia State to 3 points on the 3 turnovers. That was big too. Whereas against App State, the turnover in UNC zone was scored for a quick touchdown. I think 3 points off of 3 turnovers is admirable, and that helped kind of switch the momentum when it was going the wrong way there in the third and fourth quarter.
It was huge. They had, if you take the 3 turnovers Carolina's offense had and the 4th down where they got stuffed in their own territory, those were 4. If you make that 4th down stop a turnover, those 4 instances, Carolina's defense only gave up 3 points in those 4 things. I mean, it was huge. Max said they won the game. I wrote that Carolina's defense, this was personal for them. If you listen to Power Eccles, I mean, they took it personally. Were they perfect? Absolutely not. But what happened in Boone and then what was happening in Atlanta, you listen to the passion of Power Eccles, they were taking it personally. And they responded, and they finished that game when they were trailing 28-21 with 4 straight stops. And Carolina won the game.
Yep. So Slagle asked who was arguing the DL in the secondary. From what I could see on the television copy, everybody was bickering, but it was guys that were mad at each other for being out of position and all that stuff. And Eccles and Gray yanked them up, basically. At best you can yank up a group of 11. I think, let me ask you guys this question. Is that, and I guess we'll find out, but could that be a turning point for this crowd?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I mean, I think if you've talked to Power, Eccles, and Cedric Gray, I mean, they are dudes that come off confident. They come off as leaders. They're good with the media. You can tell they know what they're talking about. So them stepping up was not surprising, and I think it's good. You kind of define who your leaders are. It should be the linebackers too. So you could see there's a little bit of a time where the defense woke up and that momentum, and to come out with a win too. I can coach them harder, but that was good to see. So yeah, I think I was just gonna say that, Tommy. I think it could be a little bit of a turning point, and now it's kind of clear like who the leaders are, which I think you need that, and you need player-led teams and player-led defenses. I mean, there's a time this defense needs to wake up, and they need voices that are. These are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. They sometimes need that little push at times.
Yeah, I don't.
It was a turning point. I don't know if it's a turning point for the season. Sorry to interrupt you, Tommy.
No, you're good there. That's the discussion, right? Was it just for that game, or does it?
It was a turning point for the game, without a doubt. Because like I said, it wasn't going the right way, and they stopped it. They stopped what was happening. Power Echols said God gave him the words, and they put a stop to it. And Cedric Gray had a career high 14 tackles. And Kamen Rucker said, when you feel it breaking apart and you bring everybody back together and then you make those stops, that's what it's all about. And I believed him as he was wearing his Where's Waldo glasses outside of the locker room.
Power and Cedric are two of the best players too. And so when your best players are leaders, some coach has said that in the past. When your best players are leaders, that's what you want from your team, because it's hard for a player who's bad to be a leader. Like, why are we listening to this guy? Cedric Gray and Power Echols are clearly two of the best players, and they're the voices players you're going to listen to. And it's crazy because Power's he's a first-year kind of player, sophomore, didn't play much last year, and he's the leader.
Yeah, we talked about it on the day after podcast with Jason Staples. You got a guy, it's got to be player-led, right? Because they're not going to listen to the old dudes. But it's got to be players that are good. And Carolina's got some benefit with – I didn't think they had it last year. The best players weren't allowed leaders last year. Sam Howell, we can discuss his leadership or whatever. He was fantastic, but I don't know if he was that guy. Power Echols is not only out there trying to kill people on the field between the lines, but he's leading outside the lines. I think it's huge for Carolina's defense, and that's part of the reason, for me at least, watching is why I don't – it's not so much worry or angst or whatever that the 3-0 is a shadow 3-0 or whatever, because I think that moment happened. Look, they're not good, and they're not good in the secondary, and we're about to talk about the secondary. But bottom line is they got it done, and they'll get it done in the future with some leadership. So let's address Thomas Yancey's question. Ross, please address the elephant in the room. How can the DBs get their problems resolved? Another game, 2 games in a row, where the DBs and the safeties have played every snap.
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't play the game. I'm not going to break down the X and O's like Jason could or Jeff Schottmer or even Taylor. But it seems like they are 5 yards away from the wide receiver on some of these open pass plays. Like, why are they getting so open would be my concern. Now, you look at that, and they're playing off the wide receiver. The corner's playing a little bit off. That's part of the scheme. The scheme is play off the wide receivers, and they're able to get open because of these zone concepts. So I don't know. People keep saying it's not scheme. It's not scheme. At some point, you got to play them a little bit differently so they're not running so free to disrupt the route at the beginning and at the top. And the safeties have to be there as well. So I don't know what's going on. I do think Cam Kelly tackled better and has been a little bit of a better player. He's gotten better each game, but it's surprising to see Grimes and Duck get beat so bad. I mean, Duck seemed like his foot was in mud or in water as I try to work in a duck pun. And he's supposed to be one of your better corners, and Grimes too. I mean, Grimes got beat a couple times, had a PI, and a player dropped a pass, which should have been a touchdown. So I don't know. At some point, I asked Jeff this, that like, at what point do you start playing other guys? At what point do you start playing Balfour or Allen to just kind of wake these guys up? I don't know. But there's a reason why Grimes and Duck are playing more. I don't know, Adam. Do you have anything better than that? I think that's the issue. The secondary seems to be the biggest issue. More pass rush from UNC's D line is maybe a little bit of the problem. I don't think the linebackers should be of concern. I think it's a little bit of the D line, and the majority is the secondary and the cornerbacks. So yeah.
Read that from Greg Barnes on the screen. That is phenomenal.
Yep, that was in his PFF breakdown. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, there are 44 ACC quarterbacks who have played at least 50 snaps. 3 Tar Heels reside in the bottom 5 spots of those rankings. So 3 Tar Heel, which defensive backs, I don't think he stated which ones, are the bottom 5 of players who have played at least 50 snaps. They're not good, and they're not grading out well.
What do you think, Adam? What's the solution? Does your curious Conley coming back at some point?
I don't know about that.
It doesn't seem like he's coming back for Notre Dame is kind of the intel we've received. That's kind of the vibe we're getting. I'm not going to report that or anything, but it doesn't seem like he's ready to come back for Notre Dame.
Yeah. What Ross said.
But
well, I mean, I think
whenever he does come back, I think he offers some leadership, but I don't know if he's going to make that big a difference, especially if he's not completely healthy.
Well, he can bring the hammer. I mean, he's an athletic freak, as you know. But how will he be whenever he does come back? I'm not sure he comes back sooner rather than later. How will he be? I mean, it's an ACL injury. So anyway, but as to what Ross was saying about the secondary, I mean, Carolina certainly has been exposed back there. Like, you know, that's where you see it the most, obviously. I mean, think about the visual of that go-ahead Georgia State touchdown where Geo Biggers and Storm Duck just are completely crossed up. They just got completely crossed up. The number 14 for Georgia State, Robert Lewis, is running free, catches a touchdown pass. The next thing you know, he's kissing to the crowd and he's bowing and all this. They look like Reggie Miller, you know, back in his heyday in Madison Square Garden with the bows. And you have Geo Biggers. I mean, you know, it paints itself. You have Geo Biggers and Storm Duck going like, what the heck just happened here? Like looking at each other. That has happened more often than not with Carolina's secondary. You know, as we wrote this preseason, as we heard this preseason from Gene Chizik and these guys, that wasn't going to be what we're going to see. The communication was going to be there. And it just hasn't happened. So I don't, when you said, how do you fix it? I don't know how you fix it. I mean, is Dante Balfour still in the mix back there? They were really high on him. But he's a redshirt freshman. You know, Tony Grimes had some moments at Georgia State. You know, he broke up a pass late on third down that was key in fourth quarter. But I mean, has he underperformed to his talent? You know, Storm Duck, or his supposed talent, Storm Duck, hasn't been good. And I feel for him because he obviously has been through the injury issues. So I don't know what the heck you do.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's as much communication as it just like players getting beat and not being good. Like there probably is some communication, like you mentioned, with the mix up there, but at some point it's like your one-on-one battle, like just guys getting beat, and so that would be a technique thing, how you play different routes, how you play different players, a little bit of Jimmy and Joe's there, who knows? But
one thing you don't see, talking about that, one thing I don't see a lot of is I don't see a safety coming over to help.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're late on everything. You notice the ball's in the air, it gets completed. They're late on everything. It seems like
the safeties. We were doing all these preview pods. The safeties was my concern because has Biggers or Kelly been like that good? They haven't really been. They don't jump off the field to me as talented players. You know, and I'm not sure if Conley would add anything from a coverage standpoint. Now he could, you know, like Adam said, like run support, laying the big hit, maybe intimidating players from coming across the field for sure. But in terms of like a high-flying athletic safety who could run with a wide receiver and make the play on the ball, I'm not sure that would be there. So I don't know. I don't know if Will Hardy's the answer. Your boy Will Hardy, Adam steps in. So I don't know.
They're high on Will Hardy. They're high on Marcus Allen, the two true freshmen there. But, man.
Yeah. We'll see. I think they have the 12, 13 days to figure it out. And I'm sure Charlton Warren and Dre Bly are their nose to grindstone trying to make it better. But look, there is a lot of tape out there now on this defense. There's a lot of tape on players getting beat. So we'll see.
Let me ask this question. Yeah, and a lot of people think that just because Notre Dame's going to have their backup quarterback, well, that story's been told many times. Let me put this question up right here for you guys and ask what y'all think about this. And this is something that I find very interesting. Carolina doesn't blitz. Gene Chizik doesn't blitz. Not at all. Is there at some point that you change it up? Ross,
Yes.
you've been covering them forever. Adam, you've been covering them forever. Is Chiswick the type that's going to change it up? Adam.
At some point, yes, you've got to blitz. Now I know Gene Chizik has 2 more national championships than I do, but yeah, this is a question. This is a question. Ross or Tommy, you take this. Like, do you think they have been intentionally vanilla defensively on purpose through 3 games with the ACC schedule coming? I mean, you're trying to win the game, obviously.
I mean, the poster's right. I mean, Chiswick has been just known for not blitzing. He said it. He said, look, I blitz. I bring 4 defensive linemen. That's what I do. Occasionally bring a 5th linebacker. But the whole thing is we're not going to pressure with more than 4. It's that bend, don't break. The idea is that your defensive ends should be able to get to the quarterback, and then you drop into coverage. And that's his scheme. It's just what it is. That's what Mac Brown hired. Bateman was the kind of the exotic blitz guy. And that didn't work out. There's a whole podcast about the whole Bateman era at UNC out there. But this is what you get. We get Gene Chizik, and it's worked. And right now look, he's 9 months into the job. So he had to probably fix a lot of things to get to where he is now, I imagine. And they're probably still working on some of those fundamentals and reteaching players certain things after, so I don't know.
We'll dig more into the positives and the negatives on the Game Plan podcast on Thursday night with Jason Staples and Greg Barnes. Ross and Adam, let's do something that we can agree on. Let's switch it up a little bit. And a lot of your questions in the chat, we're going to have a mailbag for Greg and Jason on Thursday, so throw those questions on the board. But let's switch it up. Let's talk about Carolina basketball. The schedule just came out. I saw the Maui Invitational. And I was like, whoa, I'm going to Maui this year, but that's not until 2024. Ross, your initial take on the basketball schedule, I don't see anything overly exciting, quite frankly. Ohio State, New York, Michigan, and Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, Adam wrote a nice little analysis piece. I think it's pretty cool. You got 3 games in Portland over Thanksgiving, and then it's 3 days later, it's at Indiana and Bloomington. And that place is going to be rocky. I think Indiana will have a top 20 team versus what you think will be a top 5 UNC team at that point. And then a couple of days later, it's at Virginia Tech. So you have a tough stretch there. And like you said, I think it's cool. I know Adam's pumped to cover UNC versus Ohio State in Madison Square Garden. Kind of as Christmas, it's going to be, a Christmas in New York, Madison Square Garden, walking around, lights everywhere. It's going to be beautiful there. And then back to Charlotte for Michigan. So you have this run of all these Big Ten teams, as Adam explained, and then it's the ACC slate. The first 2 ACC games are in December, Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech back-to-back, and then really get into it with the next game is Pitt, which could be New Year's Eve or the day before New Year's Eve. I'll let Adam take it from there.
I don't know what the heck Tommy's talking about not exciting games. I mean,
I didn't not exciting locales. I'll put it that way. New York
City.
I
could see Portland. I can see Tommy not being a Portland guy.
Yeah,
I'm not. That gets me pumped up. I mean, I love. There's like the weirdos and the freaks and the
Portland
food,
weird, right?
Piercings, the tattoos. I mean, that is right up my alley.
How many tattoos you got?
Dude, but I love the weirdos. That's right up my alley. I love people watching at those places. And I went to that tournament with Greg and Jim. And I'll tell you, in the beat here on the beat,
there you go.
We walked around trying to find a restaurant that would suffice Jim Hawkins' palate. And I was like, dude, let's go get like some street food from a food truck. And like Jim, of course, always wants to go to the most expensive place. And so we just walked around for like literally an hour and a half trying to find a restaurant that would fit. But it's
you
cool
walking
town.
around like going, does it cost $100 per
dude.
person? No,
it's like Jim like has to eat at places that are expensive, and I'm like, dude, let's eat places that are good. Tons of good ethnic food. So I think that's cool, but it's also cool because it's like 16 Nike teams. So Duke will be there in the other bracket. UNC will be in another bracket. They could play Villanova, and Portland, once you get outside Portland, it's beautiful in Oregon. The coastline's like an hour and a half away, so it's really cool. Adam?
How about the restaurant we ate at in Columbus, Ohio, Ross?
Yeah. Was it Kansas City that we did back-to-back ethnic?
No, I meant the
Oh,
The
yeah, we can say that. Jim took us.
pizza place.
Yeah, Jim took us to a gay pizza place in Columbus. It was actually great. It was kind of funny. We walked in and Jim and Greg were sitting there.
It was hours after Carolina had beaten Washington
Mhm.
in the 2019 NCAA tournament to get to the 2019 Sweet 16.
Was
But
the pizza good?
pizza was really good, I
It
thought.
was a lively atmosphere, Tommy.
So you're going. So you mentioned Thanksgiving. Do you think you'll be getting Thanksgiving dinner in Portland, Ross? Remember, remember Thanksgiving dinner at the Bahamas?
Yeah, jury's out on whether I'll be going, so we'll see what happens there. Yeah. Last
Well,
time
here's
I
the deal on the basketball schedule. Like, I believe it's 9 games that UNC has from Thanksgiving until they play Pitt. They play Pitt December 30th or 31st, right, Ross? Somewhere like right before New Year's.
Someone tweeted me and is like, they're playing Pitt in back-to-back games, the 30th and the 31st.
The home and away, like
48-hour game.
Right, they're just gonna play a double header in the Oakland Zoo. But it's between Thanksgiving and when they play Pitt December, whatever, at New Year's, it's 9 games that UNC has in basketball. 7 of those games are against power conference teams at a time in college basketball when a lot of teams are loading up on cupcakes. Carolina, I mean, that's going to be a tough road to hoe. I believe it's the Citadel is one of the non-powers, and I can't remember the other one. But they got 2 They got 2 Go ahead.
Unless you count Portland.
Yeah, Portland. There you go.
Sorry.
There you go. It's Portland, the Portland Pilots, and the Citadel. You got 2 ACC games in there. You've got possibly 4 Big Ten teams in there. You definitely have 3 Big Ten teams. You're playing Ohio State in Madison Square Garden. You're playing Michigan in Charlotte. You're playing Indiana in Bloomington in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. And you could play Michigan State out at the field night in Portland. I mean, I made the joke that Hubert Davis is going to be qualified to scout the Big Ten. But I mean, you could play 4 Big Ten teams in a 5-week span.
What are they going to do? Are they going to do Big Ten champion shirts like they've done Sun Belt shirts this year in football?
I mean, you could.
And those games against the Big Ten will certainly help UNC's strength of schedule and all those. Was it Q1, Q2 wins? That not a big stats guy, but that'll be important when it comes to tournament time.
Yeah, there will be quad 1 wins will be available if they want to snag those. There'll be plenty available.
Absolutely. Carolina opens with, of course, Johnson C. Smith's exhibition, UNCW, on Monday, November 1st. It's crazy. It seems like it's not that far away. College of Charleston, Gardner-Webb, James Madison, and then y'all mentioned the aforementioned Portland trip. ACC schedule. Looks like home and away with State, Duke. Who else is in there? Notre Dame.
Home and away, Duke, State, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, Virginia, and Wake Forest. Obviously, what stands out there is, and then the only away games are Florida State, Louisville, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. All those are tough places to play, I think. Florida State, Adam had some stats about Florida State and Virginia, where UNC hasn't won in a long time. Louisville's always rowdy. Syracuse, they love their basketball up there. And Virginia Tech's a tough place to play on the road. That's UNC's first ACC road game. So ACC schedule-wise, there's some tough road challenges there.
What do we think about
Carolina will be picked to win the ACC. I think we know that. I mean, it'll probably be Carolina 1, Duke 2, UVA and FSU after that. Carolina's going to be picked to win the ACC. They have not won the ACC outright since 2017. They shared the title in 2019 with UVA. But if Carolina is going to win the outright title, I mean, it's not going to be the simplest path. They, like Ross said, they avoided going to UVA last year. They avoided going to FSU. They have not won at those places in long times. They've lost 7 straight games at UVA. They haven't won at UVA since 2012. And they've lost 3 straight at FSU. They haven't won at FSU since 2016. So they're going to be tested. Obviously, you have the home and home with Duke and NC State, the rivals. Interestingly enough, I mean, I've always enjoyed covering Wake Forest games over my career, if you can call it that. Carolina and Wake haven't played twice in a regular season, but for one time since 2014. It's sort of a symptom of the ACC getting bigger and expand this conference schedule expanded to 18 games and it expanded to 20 games, much to the chagrin of Roy Williams, who couldn't stand it. But one of the symptoms of that was that Carolina Wake home and home in a regular season just got completely pushed out. So
Which
they'll
is
play Wake.
ridiculous.
Yeah, they'll play Wake home and home. They play the big four, the other big four rivals they have. They'll play home and home this year, which I think is cool. I like it. I would like it if they could do that every season.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm old school, so they need to play the Big Four. Even if, conference expansion once got us and they move all around, they need to still play those Big Four schools, Duke, Wake, and State. What do we think about potentially Armando Bacot's senior night being March 4th against Duke in the Smith Center? Can we imagine what that place will be like, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can imagine it because I think it's going to happen. I guess
I'm talking about the environment. Carolina's good, Duke's whatever they are this year.
It's going to be rowdy. I mean, you feel those games feel different in the Smith Center. Always, it's cool how they rotate it. So one year you get the last game in Chapel Hill, and the next year you get the last game in Cameron, and it'll be a huge game. I mean, it's awesome. I love it. But right now, focused on football. But it's cool to see the schedule, kind of see where you're going to be going. Start booking some flights. And it's going to be awesome to cover a UNC team that's expected to be number one. And I think anything less than national championship will be disappointment.
Ooh.
Could be Caleb Love's senior night too.
Ooh, that's a debate.
He's obviously a junior. Could be a lot of people's last games.
Leaky Black. I mean, definitely
gonna be Leaky.
Leaky Black already had one, so
it'll definitely be Pete Nance's final game in the Smith Center.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of guys' last games in the Smith Center that night, March 4th, against the Dukies.
It will. It'll be an event in the Smith Center on that night. To Ross's point, it's cool to go around and cover these games, or at least go see these games in other places. I mean, everybody's married to what it's like in Chapel Hill, whatever, but go up to Notre Dame, see a game. Go to Tallahassee and see a game. It's just different environments. Not as good, but different. And Carolina gets the Big Four on the home and home basis. Ross Martin, tell us about close the show the way you opened it with Jeff Schottmer, and your podcast going to be tagged on the end of this for the audio crowd.
Yeah, Calling the Shots, presented by Blue Shark Vodka. We record Monday mornings. The video is on YouTube on Mondays, and then we are adding the podcast audio to the end of On the Beat. So listen to an hour of On the Beat, and then about 30 to 45 minutes of Jeff Schottmer and myself recapping the last week's game, and of course breaking things down anywhere where the conversation goes. We won't be recording next week, but we'll be right back. After every game, we'll have a show. I think it's kind of how we're going to do it. That's presented by Blue Shark Vodka. Appreciate everybody inside Carolina for adding that to the podcast feed. You just got to keep listening On the Beat, and we'll get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got your stat too, Tommy. Am I not supposed to close?
Oh, yeah. I always forget. Stat of the week.
All right. Drake May threw his first interception as a college football quarterback last week at Georgia State. Interestingly enough, in my opinion, that interception occurred on his 100th career pass in a Carolina uniform. So if he's going 100 passes between interceptions, I think the Tar Heels are going to be just fine. He started this season with 11 touchdown passes before he threw a pick. Early in the second half. I believe it's Carolina's first offensive play of the second half at Georgia State. And that, if you take the passes he threw as a freshman last year, and then you take the passes he threw this year, added up to 100 career passes before he threw a pick. So there's your stat. Also, if anybody wants to look forward to next week, by my count, UNC has started a season 4-0 in football only one time since 1983. I got to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. That would have been 1997, Mac's final year in Chapel Hill. But looking at what could be a rare 4-0 start if they're able to knock off the Fighting Irish.
Let's get Vipolis's question in there.
Yeah,
Ross,
I was going to say, I got you right here.
All right. I want to hear Adams. This is for basketball, I'm assuming.
Let's do it for – this is a bonus question, folks. Let's do it for anything, basketball or football. Ross, Adam, what's your favorite away game location that you've covered? Adam, you'll go first.
Oh, man. Well,
Adam's covered a lot of Elon games in small stadiums for football and basketball.
Hey, Elon rocks, though.
Hey, man, 6 Flags over Georgia at Georgia Southern. Don't hate. They beat Nebraska. You missed that on the Sun Belt thing when we were talking earlier. I mean, I hate to make it a layup, but in terms of basketball, I mean, Duke and NC State. I mean, you just can't beat the energy, the electricity at NC State, the absolute venom that you hear from the Wolfpack crowd. I'll never forget them chanting at Marcus Page when Carolina was going through a little bit of an academic issue. They're chanting at Marcus, asking him if he could spell his name. And then I asked Marcus about it after the game, after he'd scored 30-some and they'd beaten NC State in overtime. And he's like, by the way, yeah, I do know how to spell my name. And he spelled his name out, Marcus Page. Pretty cool moment. But I would have to take Duke and NC State in basketball because you just cannot replicate those anywhere else, what the scene that's happening.
What you got, Ross? You got a much more yours is much more outside of the box.
Yeah, I mean, so at basketball, I mean, Duke and Cameron is unbelievable. You can't beat it. I will go a little bit. I mean, Bahamas, Atlantis was cool, not just because of it's cool you're playing this little ballroom. Dickie V butting up to Tommy was neat. You had who was behind us, but that was just fun because of setting. But for football, this is going to be not many people are going to agree with me. I love going to Charlottesville. I love Virginia. For some reason, I think I went there a lot in college, and it's right, in the shadows of the Appalachian Mountains. It's beautiful. It's kind of the tailgating scene's fun, and Virginia Tech is awesome too. Walking around Virginia Tech was cool, and look, Appalachian State was sweet too. That was awesome. Walking around Appalachian State, looking over the mountains there, it's beautiful. We were in the press box as the sun set, and the crowd was great there. I've definitely not covered as many locations as a Greg Barnes or Adam Smith. I was going to go to Maui in 2020, but a little thing called COVID got in there. I'm trying to think anywhere else I've been that stands out. That's probably it. I'd say Appalachian State was sweet, Blacksburg, Virginia for football, and then Duke for basketball.
The skylines, you would never pick these probably, but Georgia Tech and Boston College, the skylines that you see from those press boxes. Georgia Tech is an open air. You're outside. It's quite a visual. Boston College has absolutely beautiful campus. Ross has been there. He knows that one.
Not for football.
Okay. But the skylines there for Georgia Tech and BC are probably underrated. Those are pretty cool visuals you have as you watch a football game.
So I covered at State in Carolina the last game in Reynolds with the late J.B. Sissel, and I'm surprised we didn't die that night. They were literally pulling up rows of those portable chairs they had in the end zone at Reynolds back in the day and waving them and throwing large coins. They weren't throwing pennies. Those folks were high society. They were throwing quarters at Carolina fans. And Ronald Curry and Ed Cota almost incited a riot there. And so that was quite an adventure. And then, of course, Duke and Cameron, like you said, Ross, like you said, Adam, is pretty amazing.
I'll say this. Notre Dame was sweet last year. I mean, it was awesome. Notre Dame, and it was a little rainy, but it was awesome. I can see why people visit there and want to go to Notre Dame. I mean, it's just you get why it's so magical and the tradition. Walk around that campus, man. It's awesome.
It was Halloween weekend at Notre Dame. Ooh.
Yeah, and a great tailgating scene too. I mean, there's a huge parking lots to tailgate. Then you get to the campus; it's kind of quieter. We went to the little Catholic area there, Adam. What was
you did a
grotto?
Great job
the little grotto area, and was it someone yelled out some gambling line while people were praying or something?
I believe you talked to Bubba Cunningham himself coming out of we were on campus. He was coming out of a church.
That was the big church on campus.
Basilica, man. Come on. Let's get out of here before we
the old church there on campus.
Yeah, that was just a church, man.
Is it a Baptist church? No, I'm joking.
My Atlanta. All right, boys. It's been fun. Make sure you stay with us for the Shotmer with Ross after this ends, after a couple ads. But this has been On the Beat Live. It's been a fun show, guys. It's always a pleasure to talk to y'all. Y'all make sure y'all take care, be safe. We will be back next week.